Hello, hello, hello. Wow, 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 wow. I've never seen so many Blender users in one place. This is amazing. So welcome, welcome. This is the 18th Blender Conference, the international yearly conference in Amsterdam, where we celebrate that in 2002 Blender became open source. And I have a nice keynote, but as usual, you know, I start with a little warming up for the audience. So first question I have for everybody is, of course, where are you from? And I first want to see all the Dutch people. Come on, Dutch people. How many Dutch people are there? That's not a lot, right? It's okay. Let's go to our neighbors, Belgians. Come on, Belgians. Good, yes. And then French people. There must be plenty of them. Yeah. Germans. Come on, Germans. Woo! Hey, and our friends from the UK. Did they let you go? Okay, fine. So I'm not going to go after every European country, and I'm going to do a little bit more regional. But first, of course, Italians. We should never forget about Italians, right? Spanish people, there's another big group. So then the whole Nordic area, from Iceland to Denmark and everything. Sweden, yeah, good. The Southern Europe, except for Italy and Spain, like maybe Greek people, Portugal, good. The whole Central Eastern Europe, Poland to Albania, and yeah, that's cool. Russia, of course, not forget the Russians, French, excellent. So we go to the south, we have Africa. Are there people from Africa? One, yes. Now, of course, we go to Asia, China, India, come on. Australia, New Zealand, are they here? There's one? This one? There's two. Wow. Okay, South America. South America. Brazil, Argentina. Awesome. Central America. Mexico, Mexicans here? The best animation filmmakers come from Mexico. We all know that, of course. So, United States. Come on, Americans. You. Canadians. Where are the Canadians? Fantastic. So, what part of the world did I miss? That's it, right? Good. First, occupations. How many animators are here? Character animators. Come on, hands. The awesome people, animators, right? Right? Yeah, very wanted people. Don't forget that. So, in general, artists, designers, people who make visual art. In general, wow, that's a lot. Or people who would consider themselves a modeler, have really specialized in character modeling or modeling. Huh? What's that? Good, good. Or more like designer, industrial design, models, props, environments. Huh? Good. Then there are, of course, scientists here, people who do science, working at a university, right? Something like that? Good. People who do teaching, training. Awesome. Are there here producers, film producers, or game producers, or people who produce things in general? Yeah, okay, awesome. Or people who are working for a studio where they make games or film. People working for studios. Okay. So who's using Blender in a paid shop? Who gets paid for using Blender? Getting more and more. Awesome. Good. So who's involved with Blender as a C or C++ developer? The Blender developers. Show hands, Blender developers. We will see them on Saturday or so in the last event. Those people, everybody hands. Those people, you can harass them during the whole conference for anything, right? Good. But there are also Python developers, or people who do add-ons. All right, good, awesome. Documentation, website work for Blender. Is Aaron here? Okay. So, who reported a bug last year for Blonder? Yeah. And did it get fixed? No? Yes? So who did not get a bug fixed, you reported? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you can try to get your attention here at this place, and we will make sure that these kind of things are going to happen. Finally, for who is this the first Blender conference? Almost half, yes. The second Blender conference. Right. Now we are going to count from 3 to 5 conferences. 6 to 10 conferences. Wow, we're getting the diehards here. Or more than 10 conferences, even. Yes. And then we get the ultimate die-hard old farts who have the 18th anniversary of the conference. 1, 2. Good. I feel sorry for you guys. You have to come every year, right? You cannot skip, otherwise you lose your status. Okay. So I was looking for a theme for my keynote. What am I going to talk about? And of course, there's actually only one real topic, right? We won! Yoo-hoo! Yes, you won, and I won, and Blender won, right? Yes, cheer for yourself. Look at this. So the whole industry wants us to be on board. You have to be part of the industry. And not only that, it looks like as if Blender is going to be the new industry standard, right? Woo! So that's so awesome. But you know me, I start asking also some questions, right? Like, is it really? What does it mean really to be a winner or to be among the winners? So I was looking around for some counseling or advice. And I ended up with reading this book and watching a couple of talks. This is a writer and journalist named Sirit Haradas. And he's the world leading expert for winning. Really. He knows everything about winning, especially the winners who are on the top, right? The industry winners. He was giving a talk at Google about this, and the talk was so controversial that Google didn't even want to publish it for a while. But they did in the end. It's fantastic. So I want to show 2 little excerpts from what he said to Google people about winning.
I think when I was growing up, I remember seeing on the news, you'd see news of some war-torn country, and you'd often see like rebels in pickup trucks, fighting this kind of ragtag army, fighting an unjust king or fighting a president that was corrupt. And sometimes the rebel army would win. And the guy in the back of the pickup truck would end up in the palace. And I think that's what happened to tech. This was, in many ways, an industry of renegades and hackers and tinkerers and people doing weird things. And I could imagine when some of these technologies, and some of you may be old enough to remember, some of these technologies were getting off the ground. I can imagine that to be up against General Electric or Walmart or IBM, you must have felt like rebels against an incredibly powerful establishment. But here's the problem. When the rebel in the pickup truck ends up in the palace, you know you're in trouble if they keep wearing that beret.
Yeah. I mean, so he said it to Google, and of course people at Google think they are the winners, right? But they are not only that, they are establishment now. They are not the revolutionaries. So there's a difference between it. So are we now establishment? Are we going to be the conservative people who only gather more power, get more money in, and whatever that means, to be on the top? Or are we still the rebels, or the hackers, or the tinkerers, or the community of Blender users who will have fun? Can you do both, maybe? Here's another thing he wants to say about it.
Something that you probably have heard 5 times in the last week, the word win-win. How many of you have heard that term in the last week, would you say? How many of you have used that term recently? And what's your general impression? Win-win, good or bad? Good, right? Positive. It's not just one victory, it's 2, right? Double the pleasure, double the fun. What I want to suggest today is that win-win is a more sinister and dangerous ideology than we recognize. And I know that's a little mind-bending, particularly in an institution like this that has created some genuine win-wins for the world. But here's the problem with a lot of what happens when the win-win becomes our way of thinking, not about business, but about social change. Win-win starts to mean that the only kind of social change that is acceptable, or the kind that should get the most funding and the most attention, is the kind of social change that kicks something up to the powerful. The only kinds of social change that are good are the kind that don't cause problems, don't ruffle feathers, don't blame anybody, don't accuse anybody, don't have perpetrators, just solves a problem in a way that is a win for the people you're helping, and frankly, a win for those who are helped. And what is...
So there is a catch, right? So if you get all the support and all the people of the industry on board, what we have, they give you all the money you want, and you can do everything you want, you think, but there is a catch. Right? So this is not so much the win-win thing. They have their own agenda. Of course they want to have something, right? They want us to join them, right? That's what they say, come on board. And people were telling me things like, hey Tom, are you now going to listen to us, right, to the industry? Are you now going to do things that will help us? Are you going to give professional support, services, dedicated private channels, the business class entry to the bug tracker, or are we going to have something that will help the industry? Are we going to do dedicated something for them? And I'm like, no, right? No, right? We have to do something, but I don't want this thing to be trickling up, right? We have to do the other way around. And that is to say to the industry, join us, right? Come on board with Blender, with us and the community. And of course, we have to change. We have to grow up, right? Blender is coming of age, so we are going to professionalize our own channels, improve our own organization, and make it a system which is accessible for everyone, free, online, but include the professionals and the industry. Then I ask myself another question. So why is it, right? Why are people using Blender? So why is this thing taking off so much, right? It's not about the left mouse click, or about a little bit maybe, or the 2.8. Of course, it helped a lot. So I was at a festival this year. It's called NAC. And there were like 10,000, 15,000 animators and filmmakers celebrating animation. And in the evenings, everybody was hanging out in places, Café des Arts. And I was meeting with lots of people there, especially also young people. The Generation Z, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, born in this century. And they were looking at me like, as if I was Santa Claus, or the abominable snowman walking around with big eyes, and like, what, talking, yeah, Tom, they're all using Blender, of course, we're using Blender for everything, but not in our schools. The teachers teach us Maya, But Maya is for old people, you know? So we have to learn it. But for our own projects and privately, we're all using Blender. So, and it happened several times. And at some moment, I asked one of the kids about why, right? So why is it? Because you're young, you know how to find your ways on the internet. And you can get educational versions or trial versions of Maya or any software you want. So what is it that you use Blender? Well, he said community. That's a community. So, what do you mean? Well, if you want anything with 3D online, as an animator, or as a modeler, or as anyone who's interested in 3D, you end up with Blender. It's the whole social media, it's all the thousands of websites, there's this gigantic community of people online who help out each other, and who share, and who show their work. There's no way that you can get help from professional Maya users online, because there are only a couple of thousand of them, and they pay so much money, they have to work for the license and do stuff. They're not going to help out all the kids online. So Blender is part of the ecosystem of the internet. And young people like that. A similar question I had for the professionals, because suddenly we had studios coming on board. And not only Tencent Animation in Canada, Ubisoft and others. I asked them why. Why is it? Because I don't think Blender is the best software, right? We don't have the best people, the best CEOs or the best whatever. At Blender we do our best, but Blender is okay, I think. You have choices to make. So why do you want to use Blender? They said, well, because you guys care, right? And that's right, because I care. I care a lot about what I'm doing. I'm super enthusiastic and passionate about 3D. And I know that everybody who's involved with Blender has that same passion and enthusiasm for what you do. We truly care. I care about the users, I care about the software, and I care about making awesome things with the software. And that's the main thing, and that's unbeatable. You will not get the Autodesk CEO standing in front of the audience of Maya users and say, we care, right? We care. Everybody will start booing and throwing stuff at him. But I think we can say that, we really care. The third thing I want to talk about, what makes Blender unique and why people use it, is because Blender has a story. It's a story of that little guy who went to LA showing a program, a 3D program that fitted on a floppy to the film industry there and not getting laughed at. And it's about the community who brought back the sources when the company went bankrupt. It's about all the bold artists and developers who came to Amsterdam make open movies. It's about the Blender.org project who proved that you can make big leaps for 2.5 and 2.8, that you can actively innovate. It's about all the independent websites and businesses that are popping up everywhere around Blender. And of course, the industry coming on board. But it's also the story of people who work in prisons on rehabilitation programs using Blender. I heard stories of people who are autists, who are using Blender to get out of their limitations and start communicating. Or some boys in Africa in a little town make a science fiction film. It's just about all those people. It's about the story of people. And that's what the Blender product is. Now I have to show you this diagram. This is the golden circle from Simon Sinek. And this is like the holy grail of every branding and marketing person. They all have fantastic products, they want to make lots of money, but then they have a main question, like why? Like why do people want this? Why do people want to buy our product? And I think for Blender, we have this clear, the why. And the why is the community, our social ecosystem. It's our passion, that we really care. And it's our story that will have many more chapters. The how is open source, free software. And those things are beautifully connected together. And that makes the product. And this thing will keep being Blender. And this is unbeatable. And that's why I think Blender is a completely unstoppable force. Let's talk about the future. So yeah, I have an announcement to make. So I will step down as chairman of Blender Foundation, one day in the future, right? I got you. You don't get rid of me that easily. But I have to be honest, right? I'm already setting up the Blender development project as almost an independent entity. I'm not developing anymore. I'm pushing a little bit, but we have a fantastic team who takes care of Blender and brings it further. And really, give them an applause. What I want to do in the coming years, 5 years or something, I want to do the same thing for the Blender organization, to make sure that we have something built solid. There's a couple of things that will happen in the coming years. One is the Institute will become a real working company owned by the foundation. It will be just one unit. The Institute is, for example, organizing the conferences, having the offices, making sure that developers are being managed, and do all kinds of things to make sure that Blender is being organized very well. I want to find directors to join the foundation, especially for operations, a person, and a person for development, to lead development and developer relationships, for example, to keep the sponsors happy and keep them on board. And then I want to install a foundation supervisor board. That's the people who can come in once per year to look at how things go, approve on the budget, and say, it's good, or right, we have to do something else. What I also want to work on is to further professionalize Blender development, because there's a lot of things that we are behind on. We have to get a more welcoming portal, for example, for onboarding. We have to implement engineering practices. I find those horrible and boring, but it helps to get more developers on board, especially more professional developers who want to be able to understand how the software works without having to read 100,000 lines of code, right? What you have to do currently. And we have to nurture new talent, and especially we have to protect our key developers. There are people who are doing fantastic work. They are the best in the world, and they are full-time working on a bug tracker, for example. And they are swamped in work, so we have to organize ourselves better. So in short, to solidify the Blender project for the future. That will keep me occupied for a couple of years. Yeah, but what about me, right? So, really, what about me? Because I have my own passions and desires as well. And I won't give up on that. For example, right, I still have this project going. This is the Agent 327, our Dutch spy movie. Whenever I have time available, I want to push this further and make sure that we can make this film, of course, with open source and Blender and in the Blender Animation Studio. The other thing is Blender Cloud. We want to work on growing that further and really explain to people that actually the cloud is like the studio, the animation studio. And if you grow the cloud, it can become an independent production company. It's a place where people can make high quality, industry level content, fully independent and supported by a community. So I have another announcement, and that is we're going to work on Cosmos 2. So there's a little disclaimer here. We're still working on getting the story to really fleshed out very well. But if the story works, then we will decide to pick it up. And that's what will happen in November and December. And we know how to do this. And then, thank you to our sponsors, right? They made, for example, those 4,096 LED lights possible. It's a fantastic screen what we have. And thank you for listening to me.